Good evening, and welcome to my first Facebook Live Town Hall meeting. I'm coming to you live from my home here in Shelby Township, and I'd like to take some time to answer your questions about what's going on here in the 36th District and why I believe I should be your next state representative. Now, I may have been coming around to your home and you may have seen one of these. It's also back there if you'd like to see it. And it talks about how I am a consistent conservative, and I have been for many years. And the three issues I bring up on this consistent conservatism is pro-life. If anyone's seen my Planned Parenthood video from a few days ago, you can tell how pro-life I am. Secondly is the issue of lowering taxes. We have had a promise made to us. Back in the Granholm era, we had a temporary tax hike from 3.9 to 4.35%. Unfortunately, that was back down only to 4.25%, and it's been stuck there ever since. What we need is a permanent tax cut back down to 3.9 and an absolute minimum, and I believe we should also go lower once we get the details figured out in our budget. Lastly is smaller government. We need to make sure our government is smaller and more efficient and spends our tax dollars as wisely as possible. Three things that I know we need to work on are improving our roads. The most important thing we can say about this is that Macomb County is a donor county on roads, and we need to rework the funding formula which does this. Macomb County gets about 4% funding from the road formula for our roads. And I'm pretty sure we have a lot more than 4% of the roads and population here in Michigan. Secondly, that I have under this is that we need to work on our auto insurance rates. We need to do this by looking at everything we can, and we need to look at choices for our consumers. A one-size-fits-all solution is not what we talked about and not what we conservatives wanted from healthcare at the federal level, and we shouldn't want it down here at the state level. And lastly, talking about one-size-fits-all, if we want to look at our budget, we want to look about saving money, the first thing we need to do is we need to repeal Medicaid expansion. This is beginning to cost our state millions and millions and billions of dollars, and it's something that when I get to Lansing, I want to work on repealing to save the taxpayers of the state of Michigan money. So that's some of the basic things I talk about as I've been going and seeing voters and citizens here in the 36th District. Now, I'm here not because I want to talk to myself. I'd love to answer your questions. So you'll see me glancing down. I have my computer up here, and I'm watching the comments live, and I can see what questions you're asking me. And I'm doing it here because it's a lot easier than trying to do it on the camera. I've seen other Facebook Lives where they have a Q&A session, and inevitably you end up looking up someone's nose, and that's just not attractive for anybody. So if you have any questions, I'll be keeping my eye on here to try and answer them. But as we go along, let's see what else we can talk about because I see we have a couple of people now. What questions you want asked about the state of Michigan's, the issues here in the state of Michigan. Now, some more about myself and why I believe I'm the best candidate. I've been a conservative activist my entire adult life. It's what I've always done, and it's what I've always enjoyed doing. I started off out of college interning for U.S. Representative Candace Miller. I started my own small political consulting business working on various state rep campaigns in Oakland, Macomb, even Genesee County. Then, eventually, I went to work for U.S. Representative Thad McCotter as both his scheduler and as a legislative assistant. Among the legislative issues I had were issues that are important to the 36th District, such as transportation, agriculture, and animal rights issues. After that ended, I went and helped the campaign for now State Representative Peter Lucido and worked for him from 2015 until a few months ago. So I have been dedicated to the Republican cause and towards advancing good conservative policy. Now, on the activist side, I've served as an executive committee member for both the state and county Republican parties. I've been an officer at the national, state, and local level for the Young Republicans, and I currently serve as a member at large for the Republican Committee of Northern Macomb County. I will put my credentials as a conservative and as a Republican up against anyone else in this race. It has been something that is dedicated to me, and it's been my calling as a person here in Macomb County. I was born here in Macomb County. Well, technically I was born in Rochester Hills, but I only lived there for 2 or 3 days until my mom and dad brought me home. I grew up in Clinton Township. I attended Chippewa Valley Public Schools, and then I went to Macomb College, got my associate's degree, transferred to Oakland University, where I got a bachelor's degree in political science, and later on a master's degree in public administration with a concentration in local government management. The reason I tell all this is because I am the only candidate who is ready on day one to go to work for you on the issues you care about in this district. So, what else has there been talking about? We've been talking about roads. That's the number one issue that I've been hearing about. And I already talked about the funding formula. To put it simply, the money that is appropriated for funds is divided into 5 parts. 2 of these parts go to the state of Michigan, to MDOT, which has about 10,000 miles of roads in it. Another 2 parts go to all the counties in Michigan, which have about 100,000 miles worth of roads in Michigan. And then 1/5 of that goes to the cities and villages within Michigan who have jurisdiction over their roads. For example, in the 36th district, Shelby Township, Washington Township, and Bruce Township are dependent on the county for their road maintenance. The village of Romeo has their own road department and can maintain some of their roads, with the exception of M53, which is a state road through the village of Romeo, and through Washington, Shelby, and Bruce, and also M59 touches the bottom corner of Shelby Township here in the district. So that's why we have seen such a lack of growth of our road funding over the last few years, is because the county basically doesn't get what is necessary for the job load it's given. So we need to not just put more money into this formula. We could shut down the entire state government and put all that money into the road formula, and it would still not get what Macomb County needs. I've looked at the numbers on this. Based on the request from Executive Hackle that we need approximately $1.2 billion a year for road repair. Based on the current funding formula where Macomb County gets directly, we would basically need to shut down the entire state government to put into roads to come close to getting that number. The only way we're going to do that is not by nipping and tucking in the budget. There's not enough in the budget to nip and tuck. We need to wholesale look at this funding formula, which was developed in 1951. That's before the interstate highway system, and that's when the only freeways in Michigan were the Davidson, Willow Run, and Detroit-Toledo. It is an outdated funding formula that we need to update, not yesterday, not today, not today, not tomorrow, but yesterday. Excuse me. And I hope to work on that if I'm so fortunate enough to be your next state representative. Hopefully they get done with that sooner, but we never know what's going to happen up in Lansing. I can tell you that from experience. Second thing we've been talking about recently has been the auto insurance. I just paid my premium. Trust me, I know it's expensive. We all know it is. I can't sit here and tell you that I have a one-size-fits-all answer because I don't believe in one-size-fits-all answers. I believe in giving consumers choices. I believe in giving you choices. I believe in setting a range and saying this is the minimum, this is the maximum, and you and your insurance agent, your insurance company, your insurance broker can work out between all of you what you want to be doing. The other issue which has come up, which has been a surprising issue that's come up in some of the, talking to Republican primary voters, has been the issue of marijuana legalization. It's in the news, and it's something we should talk about. I am personally not really gung-ho about this issue. I don't think it's the end of the world like a lot of other conservatives do, but I don't believe it's the right step for Michigan to take. So if it is certified for the ballot and it is put in front of us, I will personally be voting no on it. However, if the citizens of Michigan choose to legalize it, I will abide by that decision. I do think that we need to make sure, and I haven't read the proposal cover to cover to be sure, but we need to make sure that we have a very strict regime for tracking sales of marijuana, as we have just done with medical marijuana, from seed to sale. This is a great thing that was done in the last couple of years in the legislature for medical marijuana, and I think we should make sure it's mirrored, if this is legalized, so that we know what's going on. We don't allow anyone to just make alcohol, that's been the comparison a lot of people have made, is marijuana to alcohol. We don't let anyone just manufacture alcohol and sell it. I can't go and do moonshine in the bathtub like they did back during Prohibition and sell it. There's a system in place. There's a system in place for beer and wine, and we understand what that system is, and it's to protect people along the way. Marijuana, if it is legalized, needs a similar system so that we make sure that what's being sold isn't doing unnecessary damage to people. So that's where that is. Another issue that's come up has been the voter redistricting, amazingly. And actually, I know this, I was asked about this when I spoke to the Republican Committee of Northern Macomb County a few weeks ago. This is a blatant grab by the Democrats to try and win elections they cannot win. Michigan, for the last 20 years, has been trending as a red state. We've seen this at every election at the state level. We've had the House for a number of years, the Senate for a number of years. We've had 7 years of Republican governor. We have a majority of the state federal Congress is elected from Michigan are Republicans. So the Democrats have been not able to win. So they have gotten this voters not politicians ballot proposal together, which is, it's a red herring. They want to create a group of people who are 4 Republicans, 4 Democrats, 5 nonpartisan. But the people who are to be drawn from this commission cannot have ever been a candidate for office, a donor for office, a legislative staffer, a lobbyist, or a member of the immediate family thereof. So every one of you out there who's ever run for precinct delegate, you can't be a part of this commission. I cannot be a part of this commission. My wife cannot, my parents cannot, my unborn children cannot take part in this commission as it is currently drawn up. So what they're essentially looking for are people who are not involved politically, but want to take part in one of the most mundane parts of politics, which is drawing lines for legislative districts. Now, at the congressional level, you have to be exact. For example, if Michigan had 10,000,005 residents, and we had 10 congressional districts, we could have 5 with 1,000,001, 5 with an even million. That is how exact it has to be. So inevitably, there's going to be some interesting corners because under federal law, we need exact numbers. Also under federal law, Michigan needs to create 2 majority-minority districts, which is why the 13th and 14th districts, which is what the districts that they like to cite as being gerrymandered, look the way they do. Because African-American population in the city of Detroit is not just in the city of Detroit anymore. The loss of population in Detroit has moved out into the suburbs, and so the lines had to be drawn the way they were in order to justify having 2 majority-minority districts. So, again, this isn't done because Republicans are evil or we want to oppress people. It's because under federal law, we need to do this. We need to have 2 majority-minority districts, and we need to have districts that are exact. Also, they have this concept of parties of interest or communities of interest. That could mean anything. There is a district in Illinois which looks like a U. It's literally a big block, and a road. To you and I, it looks like something that was gerrymandered. But to people who support communities of interest, it's a beautiful district because it connects 2 majority Latino areas and gives them a Latino representative in Congress. So if your goal is compact districts that are square and are competitive, you're not going to get that from this proposal. So it's something that I'm urging a lot of people to take a really hard, close look at and vote no on. So that's where I am right now and some of the issues that have come up. And of course, there's other things people have asked about, local issues, road paving, my level of support for the president, which I have a very high level of support for the president. I would hope that I'm a little dismayed that, what does he call him? Little Kim, the bomb, I forget the nickname at the moment, is messing with the proposed peace plan and the proposed meeting, but what do you expect out of North Korea? So I'm hoping that, to hear some more questions from you here on this town hall. I see a couple of you have joined. And I also know that, we've gotten some other questions out there in the district while I've been out there talking to voters. So, again, if you're online right now, if you're watching this, please feel free to comment and ask me a question, and I'll do the best I can to answer it, because otherwise you're just going to have me talking this whole time. And the whole point of this was to answer your questions. So, again, if there's anything else you want to know about me, or any question you want to ask about an issue, I'll do my best. But I'm also not so arrogant enough to say that I know the answers to everything. If there's something I don't know, I will genuinely tell you I don't know, and I am not afraid to say that and say, you know what, there's an area I need to learn more about, or there's an area that I'm looking forward to learning about. For example, I grew up in a suburban area. Like I said, grew up in Clinton Township, lived in Macomb Township, now live in Shelby. Agricultural issues I knew from working at the federal level, working on the federal farm bill, which is, half about farming and half about food stamps. So I have had a lot of learning I've done about agricultural issues here, because in the north end of this township, in Bruce, in a half of Washington, it's a very rural area. We have a lot of great agricultural areas out there, which is why we need to make sure we talk about things like water access, the Right to Farm Act, and making sure that local government doesn't provide too many restrictions on people's ability to farm under the Right to Farm Act here in Michigan. We also know that there's been a lot of talk about energy. We've known that we have a lot of talk about that. I've heard some people asking about smart meters, and I've been well aware of this issue for a long time. And there is a bill, I believe it's House Bill 4220, introduced by Representative Gary Glenn, which would allow for smart meter choice, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to move out of the Energy Committee. Which is why I have a bit of a different take on how people who are wary of these devices would be able to work with a company that would appeal to their needs. I believe that can best be done through greater electric choice. Because if you have a company and you realize, you know what, there is a market for me to go into this area, and there is a market for people who want to stay with an analog meter and are willing to pay a premium price to continue to pay a meter reader. If I think it's a viable market, if I have the option through electric choice, I can go in there and do that. Currently, we have a 10% cap on choice. I think we should look at expanding that. We also have the issue with renewable energy. We just saw that DTE and consumers cut a deal to increase their renewable energy output to about 50% by, I believe, 2030 to head off another ballot proposal. I'd like to see how they're going to do it without raising rates. So that's something I'd like to see what their proposal is, how they're going to do that without raising rates, because abundant energy is the reason we're able to have the civilization we have today. The ability to have these lights on behind me, or have air conditioning in the summer, heat in the winter, are the reasons why our society has been able to thrive, and why here in America we've been able to do such tremendous things, because we have such great energy resources. Again, what other issues do you want to talk about? What issues do you care about? I'm going to have to start calling people by name, because I actually can't see some of the people who are names here. So, if I start saying names, but maybe I'll get two of you to ask something. I'm honestly trying to hopefully get someone to ask something. I see one person online that I happen to know one of their issues, so I'll talk about that one. And that's about animals. I have the fortunate to have married into a family that is very passionate about animal issues. And I know that we have a lot of people in this area who have pets, and we actually have growing into this area, we have people who are having interaction with wild animals. And we need to make sure that we work to make sure that we have a good balance there, while also preserving our nature areas here and protecting our dogs and our cats. I have a cat rambling around here somewhere. Hopefully he won't jump up and look at the camera at some point, although I'm sure it would be funny. So again, that's another issue that we have a lot to work on. I've been watching up what they're doing in Lansing. It's kind of hard to pay as much attention as I used to when I was working there, spending my days not in Lansing. But there's a lot of going on right now. But it is an election year, so it is, getting to be a little interesting with some of the things they're talking about. One thing I saw came up today that I have been very, very passionate about, not directly in terms of being involved in the issue, but in my response to it, has been the Nassar situation at MSU. and I saw where they had reached a $500 million settlement with the victims. And I saw that there's already discussion of the possibility of using state money, the state of Michigan's money, to help offset the cost of this. Let me be very clear, as crystal clear as a politician ever can be. I will not vote for 1 cent of the state of Michigan's money to going towards paying for this settlement. Not 1 cent. And if we find out that they are diverting the over $200 million they already get from the state towards offsetting this cost, then they need to be looked at in terms of having that reduced. Michigan State is at fault for what's gone on with Larry Nassar. Not the state of Michigan, not the people of the state of Michigan. This is their mistake. They need to be the ones to take care of the situation. And they need to also to be aware that they have a long way to go towards regaining the trust of a lot of people here in the state of Michigan. So that's a lot of what's going on. I see a lot of you are still there. No one's asked a question yet. So let's see. Let's see if there's anyone here I want to personally say hello to. My wife is watching me, so I'm extra nervous now, as is my mom. So again, and mother-in-law, so now I'm very extra nervous. So thank you all for joining me. I do see a couple of my constituents or some of the citizens here in the 36th district have joined us. So again, I know, like I said, a lot of people are talking about roads, and we've touched on that. I know a lot of people are talking about auto insurance because it's expensive. And I know that there's a lot of people who are wondering, where has that money gone that we supposedly are paying? My birthday's next month. Earlier today, I got my renewal notice a couple of days ago. I went online and I paid my increased birthday tax for my increased registration fee for my vehicle. So I want to make sure that goes into roads. They say it's supposed to ramp up. I want to make sure that it ramps up and that it goes into roads. Again, that fixing the funding formula is the number one thing that we can do to make sure Macomb County is made whole. Not just, gets more money, but is no longer considered a donor county. Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne give more money to the rest of the state than we get back in transportation funds. And I'll be honest, if I was in one of those counties that was getting more than I'm putting in, I'm going to fight that. I don't want to change that. I'm getting a great deal. But it's not in the interest of Macomb County, and I know my first goal, second goal, and last goal is to represent the people of Macomb County, is to represent the people of the 36th District, of Shelby Township, Washington Township, Bruce Township, and the Village of Romeo. So that's who my primary concern is. Will I work with my Macomb County members, both Republican and Democrat, on this issue to benefit Macomb County? Absolutely. Will I work with the Southeast Michigan region to try and craft a better deal for all of us? Absolutely. This is a bipartisan problem. Republican and Democrat money for Macomb County is leaving and not coming back. So this is not a partisan issue. This is not the Republicans or the Democrats imposing something on one another. This is about all of us. So this is why something that we need to work on. And it's not going to be a quick fix. This may take the entire time I am in Lansing. It may go beyond that. I may spend my whole time up there fighting for this, and they keep fighting back at me. But you know what? I'm ready for that. I've been fighting issues like this for a very long time. When Right to Work was passed in Michigan, I was up on the Capitol steps, getting pots banged at me and having a very interesting man trying to exorcise my demons. I don't think it worked because I was still there and I still fought for the issue. But again, I was there. I've been fighting for these issues. When we spoke about Obamacare earlier, one of the things we did here in Macomb County is when the late Ted Kennedy passed away, we took people to Massachusetts and we knocked on doors and we made phone calls for Scott Brown so that he could be that 41st vote against Obamacare. And we won. Trust me, we were very surprised and happy that we won, considering we were in Massachusetts. And yes, he wasn't the best senator on a lot of issues. But on that issue, the one issue that he campaigned on, he did what he said he was going to do. And then Nancy Pelosi went and just passed the Senate plan without any changes, and it's been the mess we've been through ever since. So I have fought for these issues. I have fought for these issues before I decided that I wanted to run for this office. Since I've run for this office, I've continued to advocate on these issues. As you saw during the May election, which about 10% of you voted in, we had a tax hike here in Macomb County on the ballot. I urged people to vote against it because I don't believe in putting these millage increases on these May elections where no one is voting. So I was an advocate against it. Not because I don't support Macomb College. Again, I have an associate's from Macomb College. It saved me and my family a tremendous amount of money when I was getting my education. But I, on principle, do not believe in putting these millage elections in May when the majority of the vote was actually absentees. The in-person turnout was, I don't even know the percentage off the top of my head, but it was extremely low. I know I went to vote at around 1 o'clock in my precinct in Shelby Township, and I was the 4th voter. My wife was the first voter that morning. So by 1 p.m., half of the in-person ballots that had been cast were from this household. I don't believe that's a true representation of what the people wanted. And it was not just that they were renewing the current amount, they were also adjusting for the Headley-based rollbacks, so it was an increase. They called it an adjustment or restoration or whatever word they wanted to use, but it was an increase. We have something similar coming in August. It was just announced that we are having a SMART renewal. Now, the part I am encouraged to see from both Executive Hackle and Executive Patterson was that they are realizing that the Regional Transit Authority is not working for Macomb County and Oakland County, but mostly Macomb County. So, turnout was 10%. Thank you, dear. So, again, they are saying that they want to renew the SMART millage and they want to move forward by making SMART the thing that is based on our regional transportation needs, instead of having the Regional Transportation Authority, which they put a ballot proposal on that failed, and now they want to come back this year. Mayor Duggan and Wayne County Executive Evans want a bigger proposal with more money that doesn't even service our area. The last proposal from the RTA had one stop in the 36th district, at the Walmart at 23 and the M53 freeway. That was the entire extent of the service to the 36th district in the last proposal. So why should the residents of Washington, Romeo, and Bruce vote for something that they will get no service from? And that's why they didn't. That's why Macomb County voted against it. So that's why I think that we should look at this proposal. I haven't seen the details of the map. I know that it's a higher amount they want, but I have not seen the details of the map. If it's the similar map where we're not going to have service here in the 36th district, I don't see any reason to support another RTA proposal. Plus, here's the issue. And I say this as someone who's traveled extensively throughout the country. Mass transit kind of works in some areas of the country for certain reasons, like DC, New York, Los Angeles. A lot of people live in the suburbs, go to the city to work, and then go back to the suburbs at night. We don't have that here in the metro area. People from Shelby Township work in Troy or Milford or some in Detroit. People from Clinton Township are over in Waterford. Someone from Washington may work in Southfield. We don't have something like in DC where everyone lives out in the suburbs, they all come downtown to work, and then they all go back out at the end of the day. That's why their subway system at least has the ridership it does. I've been on it, so I know it does have ridership. Smart buses, I remember when I was an intern back in 2004, I would have a regular caller who would talk about that we have these smart buses that no one's on. Why are we subsidizing it? And they're asking again, for in August, again, not on a November ballot, but on the August ballot, which will have probably around 20% turnout, but not the 40 to 50% we should have in November. They're asking to not only renew the current millage rate, which is about, I believe, 9952, back up to a mill, because again, we've had Headley rollbacks. So again, it's another tax increase. They're calling it a restoration, and that's fine, but it is another tax increase, and they're putting it on our August ballot. Now, it's better than the May ballot, I will grant that, but these millages should be on the November ballot in even-numbered years where the most people are voting, and we can get a true, accurate representation of what the community thinks of these issues. So, again, excuse me. Millages are something that people are talking about as well. And it's not because people don't support these particular things, but we're also being asked to support a whole lot of issues, like SMART. We just had the MCC one, our local schools. We have the Detroit Zoo millage, the DIA millage. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the DIA as much as the next person. In fact, I had wedding photos taken at the DIA. But should all of the residents of Macomb, Oakland, and Wayne be subsidizing that because of the Detroit bankruptcy? We've done it. It's happening. But should we do it going forward once the current millage is up for renewal? That's something we're going to have to decide. So, again, I've been talking here for about 30 minutes based on my look at the clock, and I keep glancing down to see if anyone's asked any questions yet. Only thing I have is, again, my wife reaffirming that it was 10% turnout during the May election. Actually, my favorite number from that May election was Washington Township in person. It was a tie. Yes and no were tied in Washington in person, but with the AVs it passed. So that was my tidbit of interestingness that came out of that. So, Gary Walker wants to know, where has all the lottery money gone that was supposed to be for schools? This is a great recurring question I've had, and actually we looked into this when I worked in Lansing. The lottery does have certain percentages of money that go into schools. The problem seems to be with me that they kind of overhyped that this would be a great one-time solution that would fix the schools. Now, I don't have the percentages off the top of my head. I do have a document that I do believe I still have on my computer, which I can send to Gary Walker through Charlene, because I don't believe he has Facebook. I can send to him that breaks down where the money goes from the lottery. The grand majority of it goes into payouts of prizes, around, I want to say 60%. Another good 30 to 35% goes into schools, and then there's a few administrative costs. So it does go, there is, I believe it was $900 million in the last year or two went into schools. However, the school aid budget is somewhere around, I want to say 15 billion, if not more. I may be getting that confused with the school aid or the general budget. When you get into budgets, there's a lot of numbers. I know the total overall budget for the state of Michigan is around $56 billion. Schools are around, I think it's around 2030 actually. Again, I'm too many numbers trying to remember them all off the top of my head. I don't have it in front of me. So it is a chunk, and it does go into schools, but the school costs have grown so much over the last years, it's no longer covering what it used to. And personally, one of the things that we should look at in terms of education is our administrative costs. Administrative costs for both the K-12, community college, and publics and universities have exploded over the last generation. University tuition has gone up more than double the rate of inflation over the last 30 years. And we have more people in administration at our K-12 levels than we have teachers. It's one of the reasons why we have such increased costs for our schools, and even though the money has gone up incrementally over the last few years since the recession, a lot of schools are still saying they need more. Part of it is because of increased need of administration. And it's why we need to look at consolidation of some of these administrative roles, whether it's through the Macomb ISD or with district agreements. We have 3 school districts that serve the 36th district. Romeo, Rochester serves the corner of Washington Township, and the Utica Community School District. Could there be sharing of some services between Romeo and Utica at the administrative level? Like curriculum or planning, or maybe even school buses. We need to look at that. And plus, and this is a bigger issue, but this is something that's just a personal observation of my own, having grown up in Clinton Township and then moved up north. Our school, and I also, again, at one point, worked as a substitute teacher, teaching in Fitzgerald and Van Dyke schools in South Warren, Mount Clemens, Chippewa Valley, Utica Community Schools, and Pontiac School Districts. I subbed in all of them. Our school districts are designed around 1950s population. That's why the city of Warren, the 3rd biggest city in Michigan, but it's an older population city now, has 5 school districts within it. However, here in our district, we have, and if you discount that one small corner of Washington, we have basically 2 school districts. Shelby Township is mostly covered by UCS, which is the 2nd biggest district in the entire state because it has most of Sterling Heights, which is the fourth biggest city in Michigan, coming up on being third, Utica, and all of Shelby Township. Romeo, again, is a large district geographically because back in the 1950s and 60s, when a lot of the school district lines were drawn, it was very rural and it had a large area. Same thing with Utica. It was basically the city of Utica was the heart, and at the time, Sterling Township and Shelby Township as its wings. As Sterling Heights developed in the 50s and 60s and 70s until its incorporation as a city, that population grew. It's why we have so many schools in the Utica Community Schools District. Same thing as Shelby Township has grown. We have a tremendous amount of population in UCS now, and it's why, even though it only covers 2 6x6 cities, it's the second biggest district in the state after Detroit Public School District because of that population growth and explosion. And if that keeps going north, if we have that, you're going to see Romeo, Armada, Richmond, New Haven, those school districts start to have that same kind of growth. Like I grew up in Chippewa Valley. Chippewa Valley is basically most of Clinton Township and most of Macomb Township. Macomb Township, where my parents still live, is I believe the second or third fastest growing township in Michigan. After I know Lyon Township is number 1, I think Macomb is still number 2 now. That has caused, really things that are going on with our schools. A lot of things are going on with our schools in terms of growth. So we need to look at, do our school districts fit our modern population? Should we say maybe Utica and Shelby and Sterling Heights should be split in half and have, maybe share some administration, but we have definite areas of districts? Or should we have consolidation in Warren because they have, people that can't sustain school districts anymore? So there's a lot of things we need to look at our schools. So another one, let's see. Do you know if anything is being done to increase security at Shelby Township schools or nearby schools? It's a great question. We've had these recent, incidents in other schools, and I was a junior in high school when Columbine happened in 1999. So I have seen the growth of this. I remember the reaction when Columbine first happened. You couldn't have book bags. You couldn't wear your jackets beyond going to your locker. There was a lot of reaction. And then, we got complacent and something else happened. In fact, about 2006, I believe, someone who went to the high school I graduated from was caught because he made a threat. He was talking to a girl in Idaho who happened to be the daughter of the county sheriff in Idaho. He talked about how he wanted to shoot up Chippewa Valley. She told her dad. Dad called Clinton Township Police, and they went and got the student. So this is something, unfortunately, I grew up with and I've seen over the last 20 years. We have a great contact program here in Macomb County where they actually can see what's going on in schools through increased surveillance and cameras. And they have partnered with both Utica and Romeo schools so that if they see something going on, our sheriff's department can be on it immediately. I've seen the video of this going on. I've seen the demonstration videos. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be at the actual demonstration, but this is what, unfortunately, that's something that's going to need to happen. We have to make sure that at the point of entry, you have to be buzzed in. We have, the security video, and I know also Shelby Police is working with Utica High School and with Eisenhower High School to have school resource officers there. I also know that Washington Township just had a vote to pay for half of a school resource officer at the new Romeo High School when they open that at the current engineering center off of Jewel Road. I believe next year is when they're going to open that. So hopefully that'll go through, and we have to take these steps. Unfortunately, we have to be vigilant, but unfortunately, it's just one of those things that the saddest part that happened during the most recent one was the student who said that she kind of expected it to happen. No one should expect this to happen. It is still a very rare but tragic thing that happens, and it has basically told us that we just need to stay alert and we need to make sure that, we see the signs. That's the other thing that we need to make sure, that we see the signs, we recognize the signs. That's why, one thing that I've seen is, the Attorney General has a program called OK to Say. I think that's something that, more students should be aware of, that they can say that they can tell that someone's making threats or saying things that could be perceived as a threat, and that maybe they should have someone, talk to them. A lot of times it's a cry for help. Sometimes it's not. I know, like in this recent incident, they say that that it was a person who just was rejected socially. So unfortunately, you can't always see everything coming, but the more things we can work on, the better. Let's see, we have another question here. With less and less in-state students being accepted at U of M, it's the point where they are approaching a 50-50 split between state, out of country. What do you think the solution could be so deserving and state Michigan students get admitted to a university where their tax dollars go? Great question, Mansour. Unfortunately, universities have a lot of autonomy under Michigan's constitution, so it's very hard for the state legislatures to force them to admit more in-state students. I absolutely agree with you on principle that students from the state of Michigan should have priority towards entering into these schools. Now, do we want to attract people from outside of the state and outside of the country to come to Michigan? Absolutely. Michigan is a great place to be, and we'd love to attract more people from out of state and out of country to come to Michigan. If they get their education here in Michigan, I'd like to keep them here in Michigan. One of the things I remember from the Grand Home era was the concept of the brain drain. We had a lot of great people leave Michigan. I know this from personal experience. Of the people I went to college with, many of them are no longer in Michigan. They're in places like Texas, Washington, D.C., Seattle, Washington. Let's see, where else did some of them go? Chicago. All over the country doing, a lot of, they move for their careers. And I understood that. I stayed home, for better or for worse. And considering I, fell in love here, got married here, have a great life here, and now I'm pursuing this office, I'm glad I stayed in Michigan. So we need to not only retain our in-state talent, we need to draw others in. And actually, we need to draw some of those who have left back. I'd love to see some of my old friends come back because they have opportunity here in Michigan to pursue their dreams and their goals. That's what Michigan needs to do going forward. We need to make sure we provide an economy where people can pursue their dreams and interests. And not everyone's dream and interest can be pursued here. If you want to work for the federal government, you're going to more than likely have to go to D.C. I worked for a congressman. I visited D.C. It's a nice place to visit. I wouldn't want to live there. It's too expensive, and it's really, really not fun to be there in August. Trust me. There's a reason. Drain the swamp is very, very literal. They actually had to drain a swamp to make D.C. It's really not fun to be there in August, especially if you have to wear a suit. So I don't know what we can do to force Michigan to admit more students because, again, they have a great deal of autonomy. We can work through maybe the budget in terms of, incentivizing additional funding if they reach a percentage level of student admission from the state of Michigan or things like that. It's an issue that's worth looking at, and I think it's I know you are a student at that would be interested in this, so I think it's a great idea to look at and say, you know what, maybe we should encourage our in-state universities to make people from Michigan a priority. As you say, their tax dollars do go to pay for it, so we should have them be a priority. So again, that's a great question. I can't give you a definitive answer, but best thing I can think of right now is in terms of a solution is maybe some incentives within the budget or our best practices because again, they have a great deal of autonomy under the state constitution. A fact they remind us of every time we want to try and tell them to do something, that they have autonomy under the state constitution. So it's something I'm looking forward to working on. Actually, I know you were an intern with us in the State House, so if you want to continue working on that issue with us, I look forward to it. So, it's about 7:45 here, according to me. I'd like to probably stick around to about 8 o'clock. I think that's long enough for you guys all to look at me and talk to me about some of these issues. But I know we have a couple of more questions hopefully out there. I know a few more of you have gone, a few have left, and I understand that. It's great that so many people have participated. It's great that I've got some questions. That's the part of this I really enjoy, actually, is the back and forth and the people asking me questions about what I want to do, because I can tell you all day the things I think are important. I can tell you that I think roads are important. I think auto no fault is important. I think that, being pro-life is important. I think that protecting our Second Amendment rights are important. But what's most important is what you think is important. So again, by having this kind of interaction with the people in the district and the people who are joining me here on Facebook, it makes me a better candidate, and if I am so fortunate enough to be elected, it would make me a better representative. It's why I enjoy this kind of interaction. It's why I enjoy this kind of one-on-one or group-on-one interaction. When you have these kind of things where you can ask your representative or a candidate a direct question, that's best for everyone. And, using technology to do it, I think is a great way to do it because, again, it's not like I'm saying, okay, everyone has to come to one location or everyone has to do this certain thing or we can only do it one time or the other. This Facebook page here that you're on right now, this Facebook page is linked on my phone. If you send a message to this Facebook page, it comes right to my phone. It bings as a message on my phone, and I will answer it personally. Here on this number, 586-697-0184, again, 586-697-0184, that's my personal cell. That's why it says call text. You call it, you text it, it rings on my cell phone, and I will see it, and I will talk to you. Now, I may not be able to answer all the time if I'm in the middle of, talking to someone at a door or at an event, but I do my best to call back everyone who calls me. My email, scott@scottsazak.com, that goes directly, again, bings right on my phone. It shows up on my Outlook here on my computer. I believe in being an interactive candidate, and I believe in being an interactive state representative. I want to be accountable to you. I want to be accountable to the people who sent me to Lansing, which is why I want to do as much as I can to be as interactive with you as possible. I'm already planning a couple of other of these interactive town halls here on Facebook Live. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's a great tool. Someone said, there's a lot of things with Facebook. It's a great tool. It's not the end-all, be-all. It's why I'm coming in, I'm knocking on doors. It's why I'm saying hello to a lot of people, going to community events. And in fact, if you go to scottsazak.com, there's a tab up there for events. It has my Google Calendar. If it goes on my Google Calendar, it shows up right there on my website so you can know where I'm going to be. You can know what events I'm coming to. Off the top of my head, because I don't have it pulled up in front of me, I know that both Shelby and Romeo are having Memorial Day observances next weekend. I'll do my best to be at both of them. I do have a wedding to go to next weekend, so I'm going to have to dance a little bit around that. But, I'm looking forward to honoring those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice to serve our country. It's what Memorial Day is about. It's not about barbecues. It's not about having that extra Monday off. So I'm looking forward to both of those events. And I'm actually glad that neither of them are politicized. I know some Memorial Day celebrations across the state and across the country, some candidates are involved in through parades or stuff like that. But I think it's actually better that I'm not involved in any of the festivities directly for Memorial Day because it's not about me. It's not about candidates for office. It's about the people who gave their lives in defense of our country. So that's why I will be there, I will be around, but I don't want to be the focal point. I also know that I'll be speaking on June 18th to the Republican Women's Club of Macomb County. They'll be meeting at Hamlin Pub at 25 in Van Dyke at 7 p.m. If you message me, I'll give you details. Or if you look up Macomb County Republican Women's Coalition on Facebook, they'll have information there as well. I know that we have some Independence Day celebrations in Shelby and up in the Romeo area, and that will be I'll be walking around in, talking to people. Other community events going on. So I'm looking forward to it. I really have enjoyed that part of it. Actually, I was at a family function this weekend, and my Uncle David asked me, do you really enjoy getting out there and talking to those people and all this stuff? It's like, yeah, I do actually. There's no better way to truly understand what the people of this area care about than by getting out there and talking to them. Getting out there and I know it's a little bit of a bother when I come and knock on the door and say, hi, I'm Scott, I'm running for state rep, here's some information, I'd love to hear what you think are the most pressing issues in the area, but I do that because I truly do care, and I truly do want to be the best representative I can be if I am so fortunate enough to become the Republican nominee in August and the winner in November. I'm not doing this because of some idea of career advancement or fame and fortune. Trust me, I'm not involved in this in order to become rich. When I was a child, I read about Abraham Lincoln. And when I read about Abraham Lincoln, it was the child level reading, but I was struck by the call to service. And I think that service is something that should be celebrated. Too many of our people in public service or in politics, you see what goes on, you see the negative. We know that very much here in Macomb County based on what's going on with the FBI investigation and with so many of our local officials under a cloud of suspicion. But I think, and I say this on my website, if you keep the word service forward, if you want to go into public service, you will do what it's intended to do. It's not about me. Running this race and being a representative is not about me. It's not about my ego. It's not about some need or desire of mine that I have to do this in order to be fulfilled as a person. I'm fulfilled as a person because I found someone I love, because I have a wonderful life. I had a great job, which I put on hold in order to do this. I enjoyed what I did. I have a great family. I have a great life. I don't need to be a representative in order to, fulfill some deep desire within me. What I do have a desire to do is to do better and to serve and to make my community better. I believe in giving back to my community. I've been involved in a lot of things throughout my life. I've gone to a lot of things, done a lot of things. A lot of it, on Republican and conservative issues. But I don't need this in order to fulfill something. I'm doing this because I truly think that by going to Lansing, working there for a few years, and then, experiencing my time as defined under the state constitution, I can do good for our community. And that ultimately is why I'm doing this and why I want to be your next state representative, is because I believe in service to the community, service to my state, and service to my country. So, sorry, it's the cat. So, with that, since it looks like I'm I'm out of questions, and I have about 8 minutes until I was scheduled to do this, I think I'll just wrap it up right now. So, I'd like to thank everyone for joining me here today. This has been a great experience. I hope that you found something informative. And if you're watching this later and have a question, please feel free to message me, call me, text me, email me, send up smoke signals, whatever you want. I'll do my best to answer as best I can. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you very much for spending some time with me here on a wonderful Tuesday night. I'll be back on the fourth Tuesday of the month for the next 2 months. So it'll be on Tuesday, June 26th at 7 p.m. and on Tuesday, July 24th at 7 p.m. unless I have a great demand to do this again. So I hope to see you out in the community, see you online, see you wherever I can. Thanks again for joining me, and have a great rest of your day.